Morning, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at the thumbnail character sketches that you all did, as well as the themes. It's going to be a fairly brief going over the main points, and I'm going to use some of your submissions as examples to show you how it could be done. I've also given you a copy of this Jamboard, which might be quite useful to use when it comes to studying for your Shawshank test later in the term. Okay, so when we do a character sketch, it again depends. I ask for a very short character sketch, but character sketches can go 150, 200, 300 words, particularly when you're talking about the main protagonist or the main supporting actors. In this case, say Andy and Red. One could obviously go into far more detail. But I think there are three things that you need to include when you do a character sketch. You do have to do something brief on appearance. Um, doesn't have to be long, tall, blonde haired, middle aged, etc. Then again, a lot of you left this one out. The personality traits. What makes that person who they are? Are they cruel, kind, compassionate, patient, etc.? And then the role they played in the film, which everybody did do. But you can't only do that. Then it's not a true character sketch. To understand characters, we need to understand a little bit of what they look like, and we also need to understand their personalities. So this is one really good example of the submission that I received. So quite like that this person in each case identified the actors, which was good, or male actors in this case. So Tim Robbins plays the role of Andy Dufresne, who is sent to prison for the murder of his wife and lover. That's the role he played in his work in the film. Andy worked previously at a bank. Andy is tall. There's appearance, smart, witty, and who does everything he can to escape prison. One can also perhaps talk about his perseverance, his patience, his calmness, his serenity. Those would also be personality traits that would apply to Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins. Morgan Freeman, also known as Ellis Boyd or Red Redding, was sent to Shawshank for committing a crime when he was younger. That places his role in the film and makes it clear. Red is the man who can get you anything you want in prison. He is trusted, he is dependable, and he becomes best friends with Andy in prison. Let me speed up a bit. Bob Gunton plays the role of Warden Norton, Warden of Shawshank. I think it's important to mention that he's a very committed Christian, but his actions are not that of a Christian at all. And I think that's an important part of the role he plays in the movie and his personality. He's an old man with glasses, that is his appearance, who forces Andy to launder money. He is cruel, this is his personality, he deceives people. And I think one would need to add he uses the Bible and his interpretation of the Bible for his own selfish purposes. Clancy Brown plays the role of Captain Hadley. He is tall, I think a little bit more than tall. He's muscled, well muscled. He's tall, brutal, violent, and cruel. All of those do apply. Excuse me. He's Warden Norton's right-hand man. Not right man, that should be right-hand man, who commits crimes in prison. James Whitmore plays the role of Brooks Hatlin, who is an old man stuck in prison. He is gentle, friendly, and kind. You can also mention he loves animals and befriends a bird called Jake. But it's really important that you mention this part here, that he becomes institutionalized and what that means. And then, of course, he hangs himself because the world he encounters when he's released from prison is very different from what he experienced when he went to prison however many decades ago. Gil Bellows plays the role of Tommy Williams, who is a young, cocky man who was sent to Shawshank for stealing, and he helps him get his high school diploma. That's 2 words. Tommy is the one who can prove Andy's innocent, but he's shot by Captain Hadley. I think you need to say here that it was on the orders of Captain. It's in the orders of Warden Norton. Excuse me. He's actually assassinated by Captain Hadley, but on the order of the warden. Okay, here's another example. Andy Dufresne is the main character, a man convicted for the murder of his wife. He's very calm, he's calculated, he is very smart, perhaps what is lacking here is a little bit more about the role he played in the movie, and also a little bit more about his appearance. Red is one of the most prominent supporting characters, who is also the narrator. That's really important that we mention that. That's an important role that he plays. He's been at Shawshank for 20 years and he's become institutionalized. He's witty. He has a somewhat relaxed personality. That's quite a good way of putting it. And his role in Shawshank is someone who supplies goods. He's, in other words, a smuggler in the prison. Warden Norton is the warden of Shawshank, and the main villain. Many of you, well done, you identified him as the main villain. There were perhaps two villains, or two clear villains. That would be Warden Norton, and the other one would be, of course, Captain Hadley. All right, so important things to mention here. He's strict, unforgiving. He is definitely evil. He's extremely cruel towards the prison inmates. And again, the one thing here, that he uses the Bible for his own selfish ends. He doesn't truly understand the Bible and the compassion in it. He uses it for his own selfish ends. Then Captain Hadley is the highest of the rank of the prison guards. Again, he's the right hand of the warden. He's extremely cruel and violent. He tortures inmates and he dishes out punishment. Brooks Hatlin is the old librarian. He is the supporting character who befriends Andy. He's very calm and he's kind, and he has a way with animals, but he's been hugely affected by his incarceration. That's really good. And he has been institutionalized. He's so used to prison life, he can't actually cope with life outside of prison when he eventually gets there. Okay, so those were the thumbnail sketches. Let's now go on to the next part. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. When we look at the analysis of a character, we need to look at what they say and do. A lot of you only focused on the one. So this was quite a good example. Right, so Red is the man in prison that can get you anything you want. That is what he does. What does it show? It shows that he has connections with people within and outside the prison. But I think it says a lot more. It also says he's resourceful. He's able to think on his feet. He is able to use his very difficult circumstances in prison and eke out a more comfortable existence. So I think you need to go a bit more there. Randy, listen to me. Red says that Andy should grow eyes in the back of his head. It shows that he is caring for Andy, not only for Andy, but he's a caring personality. Red says that having hope is dangerous. This is an important thing that he says. Red's given up hope. He's been turned down by the parole board. He doesn't see a life for himself outside of prison. He is slowly becoming institutionalized itself. So it shows that he has given up hopes and he thinks it's useless to fight the system. And so we go on. I'm not going to do any more of that. The last one I'm going to do, this person, and I thought that was the best way to do it. He first focuses on what he says, and then you'll see in the next side, he focuses on what he does. And I think this would have been the best way to set it up. So hope is a dangerous thing. It can drive a person mad in here. That is what he says. This tells us how prison life has made him lose hope of an outside life entirely, and he has convinced himself that it is a bad thing, and that's the institutionalization we spoke about. The man likes to play chess. Let's get him some rocks. This shows that Red appreciates his friend. He's prepared to go the extra mile and do the extra measures excuse me, to help his mate. I hope I make it across the border. This shows us that Andy's character has rubbed off on Red, and for the first time he has hope and joy in life. I think it goes a stage further when he eventually receives his freedom and how he responds to it. I think one could include that as well. And then what does he do? He gets posters for Andy free of charge as gifts. It shows again that he appreciates Andy, and he will give people close to him close gifts. Red buys the compass and fulfills his promise to Andy instead of committing a crime. This tells us that his relationship with Andy is more important to him than his own feelings. He spends the night. Andy escaped very worried and got little sleep. Just shows you much how he values Andy, how important friendship is to him, and how he doesn't want to lose Andy as a friend. And then the last part, what others say. You can read that through at your leisure, but that's also quite important to include as well. Okay, we're almost there. Then the themes. When we do themes, I want us to look at three things, please. The first is, this sounds ridiculous. I know if you're talking about companionship, most of us know what companionship is. But just make sure that you explain the meaning of the theme in your own words at some stage, whether that's part of your topic sentence or later on, is entirely up to you. This becomes really important when one looks at more advanced themes like get busy living or get busy dying. What does that actually mean? Then it's also really important, and you don't do this as a separate paragraph, or you don't do this second. So the numbers don't mean you have to do it in this order. In fact, you probably wouldn't, but you must make sure you identify the characters it applies to in the story. Sometimes it's only one character, but very often it's more than one character. So if you're looking at companionship, sure, the main companionship would be between Andy and Red, but the other companionship, that strong group that forms that includes Tommy, etc. You would need to mention them as well. And then by far the longest, this is the one that you're going to spend the most time on. Explain how the theme is explored in the novel. Okay, remember, a theme is a lesson that we learn from the movie. It's not just friendship, or it's not just heroism. What about friendship? What about heroism? So when you choose your themes, just bear that in mind. Okay, so here are two that somebody has written. I'll just go through. They chose, let me just swap this around. They chose freedom, and they chose becoming institutionalized. Freedom. The theme of freedom has been played throughout the movie. Andy's freedom was taken away when he was wrongfully accused of murder. Very nice. It's sentenced to 2 life sentences. But his freedom is taken away a second time when Norton orders that Tommy should be killed. I think his freedom in prison is also curtailed when he keeps on being sent to solitary confinement, often without good reason. That's part of his freedom being taken away. Norton also takes freedom away when he forces him to launder money. Not sure about that, whether freedom has been taken away there. And then Andy reclaims his freedom. This is the important back by escaping and going to Mexico. And then becoming institutionalized. A lot of you chose that theme. It was a good one to choose. The theme plays out in Red mostly as he believes one can get used to the prison lifestyle, that it will become the only lifestyle they know. It also, of course, applies to Brooks. He believes that Brooks was institutionalized, and that led to his death. Andy and others like Haywood don't believe in institutionalization. Now I'm not sure who that he applies to. He believes that Shawshank strips all prisoners from normal life and lets them get used to prison life. When that gets used to it, that's a little strange. It becomes the only way they know, and the normal social life will become foreign to them. I think this is obviously Red's thinking. Red also claims that the walls are funny, and if you're in prison long enough, you start to get used to them and dependent on them. So it's quite an important theme that Brooks is institutionalized. He gets no help. He commits suicide when he cannot cope. Red, on the other hand, is lucky enough to make friends with Andy. Andy talks him through being institutionalized, helps him, I suppose, in part, helps to cure him of becoming institutionalized, so that Red is able to eventually become free when the parole board releases him, and he is able to join Andy in Mexico. Companionship, this is another example. This was done in bullet point form. It's fine. Companionship plays a big role in the start of the movie when please don't do that, because you haven't yet identified who the he is. That would obviously need to be Andy. Thereafter you can refer to as he. When Andy approaches Red for his rock hammer, he puts himself in harm's way just to get a couple of beers for people. I think that's an important part of companionship. The fact that Andy doesn't even drink himself, but is prepared to take such a huge risk. He almost got himself killed just to give some beers to his mate. Afterwards, the men felt that they owed Andy, and they obviously helped him collect the chess pieces. Thus, Andy made some reliable companions to help him out whenever he needed it. That's good. When he did his library project, he could depend on the others to support and gave them work, etc., etc. So companionship, it's not only Andy and Red, it's a little bit deeper than that, and the role companionship plays in the prison is important. All right, this is very few of you picked up on this theme, but it's an important theme, how flawed and corrupt the prison system is. There is a belief that the prison system takes people who are guilty of crimes and turns them into better thieves, not better people, because they associate every day with people like them who are guilty of crimes. So the theme is apparent from the first time we introduced to the prison, where Hadley beats a man to death simply for crime. The theme comes very strongly when Andy mentions that on the outside he was an honest man, but he has come to prison to learn how to commit crimes. The theme is also apparent in Norton's behavior, who he ruthlessly abuses and uses the prison system for his own selfish gains. It also comes through when he threatens to destroy the library, that's Norton, hindering further prisoner rehabilitation for his own gains. The theme is once again shown by Norton when he gets Tommy killed. That's really important in this theme because he had information that could set Andy free. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that was of some use to you. See you soon.